Welcome to the Snacks Cast, where we sit down with the teams behind the teams and find out what it takes to grow the game. Today on the show, I get to sit down with Laura Miller, the head coach of the Alderson Broaddus University rugby programs. We talked to Laura about her experiences as a player in the WPL and on the national team, as well as her experiences as a coach at Life University and how all of those play into building a program at the university now. We also talk a little bit about coaching psychology and how we are seeing interactions with players these days, as well as our trip to the Premiership Scholarship last year, where we both felt it was a great networking opportunity and what we got out of that. I hope you enjoy the show. If you'd like to follow the show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We'd also appreciate any reviews you'd like to leave. If you'd like to follow the show on Instagram or Facebook, you can find us at Snackscast. Or if you want to check out some of the writings or have another place where we catalog the episodes, you can follow us at www.snackscast.com. So today I have the privilege of sitting down and talking with one of my Premiership Scholarship mates. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. My name is Laura Miller, and I'm currently the head coach of men's and women's rugby at Alderson Broaddus University.
Where is AB Rugby located at?
We are in a small town called Philippi, West Virginia. We're about 35 minutes south of Clarksburg, 2 hours south of Pittsburgh, an hour south of Morgantown. So we are right outside of what's called the Monongahela National Forest. So okay. It's actually a very picturesque, it's beautiful, beautiful part of the country. Our campus is located on top of a mountain and we overlook the Tigard River Valley, which is pretty great.
You're on top of a mountain overlooking a river valley. That sounds sweet.
Yeah, it's, I'm very fortunate.
I got to be honest, I was looking at pictures before we got on the phone and it does look amazing. Like the scenery alone is captures the eye. How long have you been in the role?
I started at the beginning of June, so a little more than 6 months I've been here.
Why did the school want to have rugby at the school?
Great question. Yeah, rugby is a great fit for AB. We're a small school. Our enrollment is about 1,000 students, and their goal is to hit about 1,200 students total. And men's and women's rugby is a phenomenal way. They see the value in rugby because we're growing so quickly as a sport in this country of bringing in people who are energized, who are excited to be in a place that supports rugby. They're recognizing that there are many people out there who want to take rugby seriously. And if they reflect that in their program, that we'll be able to attract some pretty stellar students.
That's awesome. That's really cool that the school has recognized that about rugby. Mm-hmm. In terms of support from the school, is it a club sport or how is that looking?
Great question.
In terms of,
So I always describe this to people as we are in the athletic department. So my direct report, my boss is the athletic director. We are treated just like every other sport. So we do offer rugby scholarships. We are in the athletic facilities with access to trainers. We have access to a turf field. We have actually a dedicated grass rugby field. And as I speak right now, the uprights are being shipped to me. They're going to be here by the end of the week, hopefully installed before we get too much snow. And so we here at AB are treated just like every other sport. We are not an NCAA program, but we are in the athletic department.
Okay, so in terms of, looking at the size of the school, where do you see the programs competing in terms of USA Rugby competitions?
For the first start of the program, we plan to be in NSCRO. I anticipate being in NSCRO for at least a few years with both the men's and women's side. Our goal is to compete in NSCRO 7s this spring, at least with the men.
Awesome. Okay. And in terms of recruiting, how have those efforts gone? Are you looking for more athletes? Where are you at in that process?
We are looking for any athlete who thinks that they're a great fit for our campus. So again, we're a small school. We're in a rural area. We're health sciences focused, but also have a liberal arts component to our school. Right now, we have about 50 open applications to become an AB student athlete within the rugby program, but we are prioritizing people who we think are a great fit for our school, because we recognize that, a lot of people get really excited when they hear it's an opportunity to have a rugby scholarship. But the number one thing that we care about is that we get students who want to be at our campus, because that's what's going to, set us up for success in terms of having athletes here long term and having them have a phenomenal experience.
Okay. In talking about people who want to be at the campus, right? That's first and foremost people who want to be battlers. Right?
Absolutely.
And second, you're saying who students or athletes who would be good fits. If you maybe could give a few characteristic traits or maybe values or something that you've seen in a couple recruits already and maybe you're working with, what do you think some of those things are?
So the first thing is being comfortable being in a close-knit community, thriving in small class sizes, thriving in a place where by your senior year, you're going to know every student on campus, and you're probably going to know a lot of the people in the administrative buildings and a lot of the professors. But what we're really looking for are people who want access to be outdoors. We're in a beautiful part of the country. We're right outside of the Monongahela National Forest. About 15, 20-minute drive up the road is a place called Arden, West Virginia. It's an absolutely beautiful area on a river. We're looking for people who, understand that these small, quiet places have immense value. And, I think that it's a niche in rugby that we're starting to exploit, and that these small schools are recognizing that rugby athletes could be a really great fit for their campus as well.
Yeah, in doing some research on the school and where the program was at, it kind of reminded me of you could come in, maybe not necessarily the best rugby player at your school, but somebody who's committed and dedicated.
Absolutely.
And looking for sort of a more personalized college experience.
That's absolutely true. I mean, we talk about fit for campus all of the time. But the opportunity for these athletes is not just to get a rugby scholarship. It's not just to be a part of a great campus environment, but it's the opportunity to build something. I'm starting these two programs from scratch. So, when I arrived, there had not yet been a single rugby athlete on campus. The athletes that we bring in year one are really going to determine what this program looks like in 2, 3, 4, 10 years. And so what we're looking for really is people who are entrepreneurial and people who are not afraid to get their hands dirty or for things to not go right the first time. We think that the folks that are going to come here are really ready to fight to make rugby happen here, because we are starting from scratch, and to me that's really an opportunity.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is there's an opportunity to be part of the legacy at the school, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And getting your hands dirty and sort of like molding the clay that is going to be AB rugby for years to come. And that sounds like an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
I wish I was 18 and not 39.
Gosh, so, I hear that from tons of high school coaches. All the time they're like, "Can I come?" I was like, "Well, can you bring your kids to visit campus? That's what we want. We want everyone to come see our campus and see what a great place this is."
Yeah. So, okay, that brings up an interesting point. Say I'm here in Minnesota, and you have colleagues all over the country, obviously. If I wanted to send an athlete to you or have an athlete contact you, what's the best way to do that?
So the best way for them to contact me is simply send me an email, send me a text. What we know that people are serious about coming here when they go online and they fill out the application. So the application is free, first of all. That's a big deterrent for a lot of people, and we do offer a lot of need-based aid as well. And so the application is free. What I would say is go to the website, fill it out, and then just send me a text, send me an email, and say, "Hey, coach, I filled out the application. I'd love to move forward and see if I'm a good fit for campus." that's step one. If people are interested in coming to campus and visiting, and that's a huge thing for us because we want people to know that they're a good fit for a small town and for a rural area, they can schedule a visit. And we do actually have a camp coming up in about a week, and we're going to have a number of athletes visiting campus for the first time for that camp. We're planning on having another camp this summer. The dates aren't quite set for that, but they should be out soon. So if they reach out to me, we are having athletes fly in to visit campus for a tour or for an open house. So that's absolutely an option for them as well.
Okay. How long is this camp that's coming up? Is it like a weekend, day?
Yeah, it's a weekend. It's a 3-day camp.
Okay. And just while we're talking about it, is the best website to put in those applications ab.edu?
It is ab.edu.
Awesome. Okay. And we'll make sure that those links are in the show notes attached to all the shows. I wanted to, we obviously went on the Premiership Scholarship trip together last year, and seeing you sort of grow and earn this role and start building this program was something that I've been watching from afar. And I have, what are some of the things in growing a program or two programs really, right, from the ground up? What are some things that you're learning or coming across in your process that you're dealing with at the moment?
The biggest challenge for us is that in order to fill a rugby roster, we need a lot of people, right? I'm hoping to have 30 athletes here by this time next year, probably sooner than that. And so the challenge that we're having is the discrepancy between needing to communicate at a big level, mass communication with people all over the country, large number of applicants, and also being able to give that personalized recruit experience. Because we know that that's what athletes need. They need to, get to know their coaches. They need to get to know the campus. And so we're reaching out to people all over the country to learn about AB. And so really what I'm saying is, be patient with us. But sometimes it is absolutely a challenge to both have a large number of applicants and, make sure that they're all getting the attention that they need. And that's really our goal, is to make sure that every athlete is being helped through the application process and getting personalized attention when it comes to the financial aid process, because we know how important that is. That's honestly one of the biggest challenges we've had, is learning how to learning that skill set. My background is in rugby,
right?
And I'm learning a new skill set as we go. Every time I take on a new position, you learn new skills, and that's one of the ones that I've developed in the last 6 months.
Right. Okay. Speaking of positions, and we've kind of done it a little backwards here, where we came out of the gates talking about your current role. For those who don't know, you were an assistant coach at Life before this, correct?
Yep.
And is there anything you learned while you were at Life that you maybe are putting into play here at AD?
Yeah, I had a great experience at Life. I was there for 2 years, and I was the assistant coach for the women's side. And I worked with Roz Chow the entire time I was there, and she's phenomenal. She taught me a ton about player management and how to manage a large team at a high level, and also make sure that the group is working together in a positive way. Make sure that you give each player the attention that they need. And really, my entire experience at Life, I was also a grad student. I was studying coaching psychology while I was there. And so, really, that was a 2-year boot camp in how to be a great rugby coach. And I feel so fortunate.
Were there any sort of key lessons, like specific things you learned in there, or was it just overall player management, right?
So, player management is the job. That is what this is about. And obviously, being a coach, there's a huge administrative role to keeping a program going. But the X's and O's, the rugby is, that's incredibly important. But the ability to create a cohesive team, the ability to get to know your athletes and make sure that each of them gets the attention that they need. Honestly, it's hours and hours of just getting to know the athletes and making sure that systems in place that make them successful, that keep them accountable to themselves and to the team, and that you stay accountable to them as well.
Yeah. It's interesting that you note the sort of like the personalized attention to each of the athletes. That's something I've noticed that's sort of shifted from when I first started coaching till now is athletes these days, and maybe you're seeing this too, they like more connection. You know, that text like, hey, how's the week going? Are you training? Like, are you finding that? Were you finding that at Life as well?
Yeah, the athletes, and they want to get to know their coaching staff, absolutely, and they want to know that they're valued. That's really what they're looking for, is to know that they have value and that they bring something to the team. And that's why a strengths-based coaching perspective is so important, in my opinion, because you can say to them, these are your strengths. These are the innate things about you that are great. And that's why you're important here. And it might not be your pass, and it might not be how hard you run. It might be that you're a phenomenal teammate and you show up and do extra skill sessions, or you wake your teammate up in the morning for lifts, or whatever it is. Everyone brings something, and it's about figuring out what that is.
Yeah, that's really interesting, how you view that, because some coaches would just talk about the tangible physical skills aspect of strengths, right? But the off the field stuff is becoming so important these days, right? The work ethic, the preparation,
right?
Time management. In terms of building the program, did you look at how you hired your coaching staff on a strengths-based basis?
Yeah, I absolutely did. I was looking for complementary skills, of course, but I was looking for people who are, innately positive, and people who just, like I talked about with the athletes, who are a little bit entrepreneurial, who have maybe set it on their own a little bit, or showed that they can work independently at a high level, and also are obviously phenomenal team players. So I think that I've got a crack team. They're amazing.
Who do you have at the university right now?
I have two guys. I've got John Baker, and I have Phil Gallagher. John Baker was the head coach at WVU for the men's side, and he lives in Morgantown. And then Phil Gallagher had previously played in Pittsburgh with the Harlequins. And he actually has a business background. He worked in finance for a long time, comes with an MBA and a great set of business skills. So he's been, both of them have been a great asset to us.
Okay. What, if you don't mind me asking, what are their specialties? Like, is forwards, backs?
Yeah. Phil's primary experience was in the front row.
Okay.
John is going to be taking on the role of our backs coach.
Cool. So in terms of coaching focus, or what areas are you going to, what areas do you want to focus on?
Myself, my role.
Yes.
So I'll obviously be taking the primary reins of the forward pack for both the men's and the women's side, and I'll oversee the game plan on the whole. And my background is in coaching psychology and positive psychology, and so I spend a lot of time working on the team building aspect, the habit development piece. My background, I also spent a lot of time as a health and wellness coach, so high performance habits, the ability to change behaviors that change your performance, is where I spend a lot of time. I think that our game plan as a team is something that we will develop as we grow. The athletes aren't here yet, so we don't know what their strengths are, and that's going to determine how we play. So that's why this is so exciting, because we don't quite know what it's going to look like yet.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, you said your first slated competition may be men's sevens and national small college.
Yep, Anscro this spring.
Okay. what does the day look like for you currently? Like, what's most of your time being spent on? I'm sure it's probably a lot of recruiting.
Oh yeah, I mean, this year is about recruiting. That's pretty
Yeah,
much what this entire year is about. That said, I spend a ton of time on the phone. I spend a
yeah.
ton of time on the phone and on the road. So I've spent most of the fall in Pennsylvania and Ohio and New Jersey going to sevens tournaments.
Okay.
And I have spent a ton of time on the phone with recruits, chatting with them about, where they are in the application process, what other schools they're looking at, that sort of thing.
Okay.
We're now getting to the point where I have some recruits that we brought to campus and on-campus athletes who want to join the team, and we're actually able to run skill sessions about 4 days a week. So we're actually getting to the point where we're having structured trainings. Next spring, obviously, there'll be a lot more structure, um, regular practices and strength and conditioning sessions, schedule of tournaments, that sort of thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you've gotten to a point where you're getting to do the coaching.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Slowly but
Yeah.
surely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How your Eagle number 204 for
Mm-hmm.
the women's Eagles, how does your experience on the national team, are there any things you're drawing, or is there anything you're drawing from your experience as an Eagle?
Yeah, I I was captain when I was 22,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew I wanted to be an Eagle the moment I realized it was a thing. As soon as I knew that there was a women's national team, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm doing that. That's what I want to do. I want to be an Eagle." And I was weird. I was a weird kid. I I wanted to play this weird sport. My parents were like, "Girls don't do that," and I'm like, "No, they do. I'm going to do this." Um, and I dove into it head first. There's a comedian. Her name is Tig Notaro, and she talks
Mm-hmm.
about when she became a comedian, when she figured out that that's something you could do professionally. And she was like, "Oh, I'm a comedian. Why didn't anyone tell me?" Like it was like this, and that's how I felt when I was 14 and I learned that rugby existed. I was like, "Oh, I'm a rugby player. Why didn't anyone tell me this?" And so I, worked all the way through high school and college, and I was playing WPL when I was in college, and it was hard. It was really hard to get there,
Mm-hmm.
and I was incredibly fortunate that I had phenomenal people help me along the way, and the experience um, has gotten me to the point where I now recognize that in young athletes. I can see the ones who, maybe they're not being recruited yet for an all-star team. Maybe they're not going to become a high school All-American, or maybe they aren't in an area with a ton of rugby and they haven't gotten a chance to play, but oh my God, they've got the rugby bug and they know this is what they want. And, I had such a great experience as a young person coming up in this sport that I can meet an athlete and be like, okay, yeah, you're the one that's going to keep pushing and keep working. Um, so I think my experience on the national team gave me the skills to compete at a high level, to learn how to train, and I can teach all that. That's the details
Yeah.
of competing at a high level. How do you organize your day so you can get a lift in and eat well and do your homework, and those are the habits. But I think that the experience on the whole got me to a point where I can see the athlete who's saying, "Oh, I'm a rugby player. Why didn't anyone tell me?" And
Yeah.
I see that I've got athletes on campus who are coming and want to join the team, and they come to my office and they're like, "Wait, rugby? That's a thing? I can do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, come to training."
that that is really cool to hear, um, about sort of your pathway as an Eagle too, right? Like a
Hmm.
lot of folks, the people that do know that you can play for your national team often think that once you become an Eagle, that's like it, right? Like you've
Right,
made it,
right.
and and I learned as when I became an assistant manager on the men's Eagles team, um, that's not where that's just the beginning.
Hmm.
And I have so much respect for all of you that have gotten your caps and it's how hard you work to maintain, um, that level to be an Eagle and to play for your country. Like it's a challenge not many accept, but I think
Hmm.
those of you who have and you've gotten to wear the jersey, I have no more respect for anybody but Eagles. Like that, it's awesome to see and hear sort of your background in that, and that you're going to bring that to a school where there's going to be kids who now are going to find the sport and have that sort of work ethic and that drive just come straight from the coach. Like
Hmm.
that's awesome, and I'm pretty stoked to see how that goes, you know. Are there any kids currently on campus that you see that in, or you might see
Oh
that?
yeah, oh yeah. We have a lot of student athletes on campus, and so there's a lot of people with sports background. We're currently recruiting someone who's actually local to West Virginia, who will hopefully join us this spring. Never played rugby before. This is
Mhm.
someone who's from the area, played football his whole life, but he found out about rugby and he's like, I've always wanted to try this. I've always heard about it, and he's never had an opportunity to. And he's coming. He's being recruited to our team. He's a phenomenal athlete.
Yeah.
Um, and we've got people on campus who, I'm in West Virginia. There's not a ton of rugby in West Virginia. There certainly is some rugby, but
Right.
most young people, high schoolers, aren't familiar with rugby. I have another on campus recruit um, who is a freshman, and she was the kicker on our high school football team. You know,
Oh
that's
wow.
that that's the story with so many women is they wanted to play football, and they were able to be the kicker, but they weren't ever a part of the contact. And now she came here, to be part of another sport, and now she's going to be able to do both. And she was the kicker on our high school football team, found out about rugby, and she's like, wait, I think I can do that. I was like, you could absolutely do it. Come to training. So she's been to our trainings too.
It, I pardon me for a second, but I think that's kind of dumb that girls who want to play football are like sort of pigeonholed into kicker. Like, is there something saying they can't play?
Yeah, I'm not
Like
sure. Football is certainly not
football.
my background. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not something I have the expertise in. So I don't know her story more than what I've just sort of elaborated on. But yeah,
Sorry, kind of gets my spidey senses tingling
I
when I talk
understand.
about stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, some of the best women's athletes I know are rugby players, and they relish the contact more than a lot of people I know.
Yep.
So is there anything else going on with the program? Is there information people may want to hear that sort of pique their interest? God, excuse me,
Yeah.
I need to take a water.
So I think there's a big misconception in sports recruiting in general, but specifically in rugby recruiting, that as a college coach, my job is to stand in the corner and then pick out all the all stars and
Mm-hmm.
only talk to them and only offer scholarships to them. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges we have, is getting people to recognize that we want to talk to them. If someone thinks that they're a great fit for a little school in the woods on top of a mountain, then we want to talk to them. Um, that's one of the largest challenges that we have.
Yeah.
I will say that we are a small liberal arts and health sciences focused institution, and we have a lot of advantages in terms of what we can offer in terms of our nursing program, in terms of our other health sciences programs that I think make our university really strong. And so I would
Okay.
encourage people who are interested to really go and dive into those majors on our website if they're
Okay.
interested in those things.
How many people are you looking at bringing in?
So we are looking for, at a minimum, a total of 30 rugby athletes coming to campus
Okay.
next year. I would really encourage women to apply and reach out to me
Okay.
specifically. This is just the numbers game that everybody plays in rugby. Is there's twice as much high school boys rugby as there is girls rugby,
Yeah.
and so our numbers are just naturally lower on the women's application side because of that. So
Yeah.
and part of that is getting young women to realize that they can get a scholarship to play rugby in college. That's still a fairly new concept to a lot of people. And so, I would encourage, young women to reach out, send me an email, send me a text even, say, hey, coach, I filled out the application.
Okay.
And then we'll add them into our list, and we'll give them a call, see if they want to come visit and start the process.
Okay. Sounds simple enough as long as people take have the confidence to just do it, right?
Yeah, well, and we spend a ton of time reaching out to folks and seeing, and AB is not a fit for everyone, and that is absolutely fair. But very frequently it's just a lack of communication, a lack of knowledge. That the recruiting path is two-way. I need to get information from the athletes just as much as I need to reach out and give them information.
That's a good way to look at it too, right? Oftentimes athletes think they're on an island, but you're sitting here saying, call me, text me, email me. I will work with you. And I think that's refreshing in the college game, to say the least. So if I can, I'd like to circle back a little bit, maybe chat a little bit more about your Eagle experience.
Sure.
And maybe we'll kind of swing back around to our premiership scholarship trip last year, if that's okay.
Yeah.
What are some of your fondest memories of your playing career with the Eagles?
So I was capped at the Nations Cup in 2011. And in my second cap against South Africa, I scored a try. And the cool part was not the scoring of the try. The cool part was twofold. Was that my parents were there and got to see that. And that I have the jersey still that I scored a try in. And next time I go home, I'm going to be giving it to my high school coach, who I haven't seen in a few years. Because he really helped me along the way when I was young. And I kept the jersey and I haven't seen it in a while. And I was moving and I found it. And I was like, oh, this needs to go to Don. So I'll be doing that. That is the coolest experience, is the people who got you there and the people who you got to meet and create incredible bonds with. For instance, I got to compete on that tour with Lauren Daly, who is currently working up at State College, Penn State. And she's coming down next week to help coach our camp. She's going to be a guest coach
that's awesome.
at our camp. Yeah. So we're going to have two women who competed at a high level, coaching both men and women at our camp. And so I'm incredibly excited to have her coming down. And so, the things that you get out of these experiences, the experience obviously are incredible. I, traveled all over the world. I worked incredibly hard. But the things that were great about it are the people that I now have relationships with, and because of it, and the people who helped get me there in the first place.
What's the name of your high school and your high school coach?
So I played for a team, it's a club team. They're now called the Mercenaries, and they're in Northern Indiana. My coach was a guy named Don Gersbauer.
Okay. And did you play all 4 years, or about when?
So I did. I started playing as a freshman. I had the experience, like I told you, of realizing girls high school rugby was a thing, and I was like, oh my God, this is me. This is for me. And here's how I found out about it. I again, like I said, I was kind of a weird kid, and I read the paper. I was reading the sports section, and in the sports section was an article written about high school girls rugby, about the team that I ended up joining. And it turns out the guy that wrote that article is a man, Ricardo Ramirez Chago, who is now the head coach of Notre Dame women. And he was the assistant coach for my team. And he wrote the article because he was a sports writer for the South Bend Tribune. Well, and he became my first coach. And now he's professionally coaching at the college level as well. That
is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And what teenager reads the newspaper as a freshman?
Yeah, apparently me.
No, that's cool. We all undervalue newspapers. I mean, there's a lot of ways to advertise the sport, and you're lucky that he was able to get that article in there. Because I don't know, would you have found rugby, you think, if you hadn't seen that article?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, not for maybe one day, but not for a long time.
Oh. Okay, that's interesting. It's interesting that sort of the little moments that sort of nudge us in directions.
Yeah,
those things, those interest me a lot, especially about my friends and people I've worked with. Where was the coolest place you played as an Eagle, or as a player, like just as a player?
I think my favorite place was Rome, was Italy, just because it was, in terms of a place to travel, it was, I had never been to Italy before, and I loved being in that area. I played in Australia when I was young. I was 18, and I went and spent a semester there. And that was not with any sort of high level program. I went there as a student to study abroad, and I went and found a program like a lot of people will end up doing. Um, but I think Italy was maybe the coolest place. I spent most of my time in England.
Oh, cool. Well, that's awesome. I don't know too many people that have played in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, it was great. We got to train at the Italian Olympic Training Center. The All Blacks were playing Italy while we were there, and so we were training at the same facility with the All Blacks, and we got to go see New Zealand play Italy while we were on that tour.
Oh, nice. That's really cool. It's funny how sort of rugby always kind of combines a lot of things. Like we've done the rugby weekend here in the last couple of years, so it's an opportunity for some athletes to have another experience other than just playing. So I think that's interesting to note. One of the things where we actually met was on the Premiership trip last year.
Yep.
How are you finding? Was there any, or what do you think were some takeaways from our trip? Right, we talked a little bit about it in the pre-show.
Yeah.
What are some things you took away from our trip to England last year?
So the thing that I learned was that I have been in rugby since I was 14, and competing in the WPL and competing on the national team, I saw the same people very frequently at events for years and years and years. And I had a very strong network in rugby, in the high performance area of women's rugby. But when I showed up in England and I looked at my coaches who were with me, I realized I had never met a single person on that trip before. Everyone was brand new. And that was the coolest part of it, was that it just expanded my network tenfold, because there were all these people who I'd never met before and who were amazing. Like, everyone who was on that trip with us was awesome. I ended up, and as an Eagle, you kind of, sometimes you put blinders on and you're like, my job is to be a high performance athlete, period. That's my job. And so part of it, and part of me stepping away from playing and into coaching and changing sort of the direction of my rugby career, is that I'm removing those blinders. And that was one of those experiences of taking the blinders off and being like, wow, these people are all, I've never met them, and they're all doing phenomenal work all over the country.
I was surprised at the range of experience and levels of all the coaches too. Was that something you noticed?
Yeah. We had college coaches, we had high school coaches, we had people from Florida, New Jersey, Midwest, all over the place. And the variety of experience was very unique.
Yeah. It was a really fun trip, and like you, I knew zero people on the trip, and I think we're alluding that the networking opportunity was actually really, really good for all of us, I think, on the trip. And
well, I've stayed in touch with everybody. I mean, I feel like everyone is sort of in the same boat where, and now everyone I met on that trip, all the high school coaches, those are my recruiting contacts, for this program. So I'm in New Jersey, I'm in DC and Maryland and Florida, because I got to meet all of these phenomenal people with phenomenal programs and athletes who are interested in playing college rugby.
Yeah, it's crazy how wide that goes, and there was only 14 of us.
Right, and they're taking 50 this year.
Yeah, they're taking 50.
Yeah.
So our legacy is the first set of scholars, as some of the folks like to call themselves, is growing our network and doing good work. I mean, you're leading a college program. I've got a podcast now and sort of
Mm-hmm.
bouncing around between things, but I thought it was cool. What was your favorite club that we worked with?
Well, so I played for the Saracens in
Mm.
England. And so I was there on the women's side. It was actually the year that I got capped. Right after I got capped, I went to London and played for the women's Saracens for a long time. But I had never been in the facility. We got to spend an entire day with the Saracens,
Yeah.
men's side, and I'd never seen that facility before. And so for me, it was great to see how things have changed, to see what's new, to be able to see the professional side of it in the premiership program, and so that was something I appreciaed, being able to see that.
Nice. Did you the coaching psychology
Mm-hmm.
part of your background, when we were at Saracens, and actually we got a lot of culture stuff from Harlequins as well.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything from any of the teams, maybe Saracens in particular, because you're drawn to that, obviously, having
Mm-hmm.
played there? Was there anything you noticed from a coaching psychology standpoint that stuck out to you there?
Yeah, well, we spend a lot of time in that specific session discussing emotional intelligence and
Yeah.
its impact on a team and on an individual and performance in general. And emotional intelligence for me is an incredibly important piece of data, really,
Yeah.
in determining someone's ability to compete at a high level and interact with others. And so I read the emotional intelligence book when I was in college. It was given to me by Sue Parker, and she was my sevens coach, and I scored really high on everything except the social piece. It was like, you're really intuitive, you can understand what you're feeling and your process and what's going on in your head, but the social stuff, man, I failed all of that on the emotional. This is me at like 21.
Yeah.
And that knowledge showed me what I had to work on as an athlete.
Yeah.
You can't be on a 15s team and not be able to interact with your teammates or be able to understand what they're feeling or empathize with them.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I use that as a coaching tool, and I would say it's one of the number one factors that I use when selecting athletes.
Emotional intelligence.
Absolutely.
You took the test, obviously, you just said
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you recommend people take that test?
Yeah. And if you are being recruited by me, send me a copy if you're interested. If that's something that if you score highly on an emotional intelligence test, then I want to know about it, because I think that those are all things that are important when building a team.
So you said you're very intuitive internally, right,
Mm-hmm.
on yourself, and you
Yep.
had to work on the social aspect of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What sort of strategies did you develop? Any strategies to work on that?
So when I was younger, I would be really nervous about going to maybe a tryout or a training or meeting a team for the first time,
Yeah.
whatever it was. And I had this sort of phrase that I recited to myself, this thing I reminded myself with at the time, which is, you've never regretted going to a rugby training. Like, you've never left a training and been like, I didn't want to do that. Why did I do that? At that time in my life, every time I left a training, I was like, oh, why are we done? I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
And so I would be nervous about a competition or about a tryout, or did that coach see me, and I would just, never in my life did I regret attending a rugby event. It was always a positive experience. And so even if I didn't get selected, even if I didn't perform to, the standard that I had for myself, or if we lost the game, I mean, there was always a reason to be there.
Yeah.
And so for myself, I'm a massive introvert. Someone doesn't take a job in a tiny town in rural West Virginia unless they're, comfortable having some time alone. And I'm very comfortable sitting quietly with myself. And that's probably my safe place. But rugby for me was a boot camp in building a network, in developing a group of people that are like in my life always. And I think that that's what I used rugby for, really, was teaching myself how to relate to other people, how to be a good friend, how to be a good teammate. And so for me, it was, I mean, this sport has really built me
Yeah.
as a person.
Yeah. The more, obviously we've connected through that trip, and the more we talk to a lot of people, I'm sure that's a common theme with a lot of folks, right? You know, rugby helps build them and helps them connect with a lot of people. I'd argue neither of us would be where we are now without the rugby stuff.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, you've got the confidence to take on a head coaching role at a college.
Yeah.
How cool is that? That's rugby was the vessel for you to get there. All right. Well, we've talked about a little bit of your high school rugby time, a little bit about college and sort of growing through that process. And you said you spent some time in the WPL too, Laura. It's like, what teams were you associated with or had played with in the WPL?
So the first WPL program I was a part of was the Washington, D.C. Furies. And my first season with them, I believe, was 2010.
Okay.
And I was still in college at that point. And I went to a small school in a rural area. And I commuted about 2 hours to get to DC to play WPL. And the reason that I did that was because I was, I made this decision that I wanted to be an Eagle. And I spoke with my coach for Marfu U23s, which was Lisa Rosen. And she told me that what I needed was, more high level games, high level coaching, being in an environment of people who were striving for that.
Yeah.
And so she directed me towards Nancy Fitz and Washington, D.C. Furies. And I was there. I think I competed for 3 seasons with them. And during that time, I got capped with the national team. And during that time, I also went over and played with the Saracens in London.
Right.
And then my first season with the Glendale Raptors was in 2013.
Okay. How long were you with the Raptors?
I left in 2016 to be a part of the Life University coaching staff.
Okay.
So I competed in the 13, 14, 15 national WPL seasons.
Okay. Is there anything that stood out from your time in the WPL as a player?
So my experience at Glendale was phenomenal. I was fortunate enough to become captain during our 2014 season and president by the time I was done during the 2015 season. And what that program was all about was about professionalism. And they were attracting people who wanted to take rugby seriously and be treated like professionals and, obviously play at a high level. And so that for me was the opportunity of being with my national team teammates as much as possible. And I love Denver. I love Denver so much. And I love Colorado. It was hard for me to leave, and I'm excited to be back in a mountainous area. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But my experience with the WPL, I mean, I was talking to a friend not too long ago, and I was talking about WPL national championships and how it's like probably my favorite event to go to WPL nationals, maybe my favorite event period in rugby, because it's this feeling of just going home. The WPL feels like home to me. And the exciting thing about the WPL is it's completely player run. The WPL has been around for 10 years and is a very strong league, and they're expanding and growing. And, that experience was just like, that is grassroots rugby at its best.
Yeah.
Players creating something incredible.
Am I right in saying it's the longest running women's championship or women's competition?
Yeah, and I don't know what the longest running men's is, but 10 years is a pretty long time for a league to be competing at a high level.
Super League didn't make that.
No, and PRP's been in and out, and it looks like they're coming back. But the strength of the WPL is that it's player run. Yeah. And that it is, everybody gets a vote, and sometimes it takes a really long time to make a decision. But the strength is in the people, and that's the great thing about our sport is our strength is our people.
Oh, totally. I would agree. Maybe little crystal ball here or magic 8 ball. after a couple of years of building a program, do you think maybe a WPL coaching spot is in your future?
Actually, I had not even thought about that. That's a great question. I think that that's possible. My focus right now is my job is to create a sustainable home for rugby here at AB, and that's my number one thought right now. I love coaching rugby because I love seeing the personal development. And as long as that is something I can do in rugby, then I'm going to be in rugby. As long as I can sit down with someone and have a conversation with them and see the gears turning, and all of a sudden they're thinking differently about a problem and they're seeing it from another perspective, or they've realized something that they didn't know before, or changed maybe a belief that they had about themselves. As long as I can do that, I'm going to be in rugby. And that's what that's why I'm here.
So I hear you saying you're attracted to the aha moments.
Oh yeah, I mean, who isn't? Yeah. Everyone. I mean, that's what all coaches want.
Yeah. If there's ever a time where you're kind of in a low part of the valley of rugby, go do a little rookie rugby and watch.
Oh God, yeah.
A little kid. Oh my God.
Yeah, my favorite group. I'll tell you, my favorite group to coach is middle school girls. I love coaching middle school girls because you teach them basics of body position and contact.
Yeah.
And they have never been taught at that point that they can tackle. Like that's the biggest aha moment is, oh, I'm in control of my body. Oh, I can, use it in this way. I can, and that's incredible to me.
It's so much fun. The process of discovery as a coach and with your athletes, and it doesn't matter which level, right? Like all the way from middle school girls to college women to senior club sides, everything. We all have those little moments, and I think that's what keeps us coming back.
Yeah.
We're winding down to the end of the show here. Laura, is there anybody you'd like to mention?
I mean, I would absolutely not be here without the confidence and support of the administration at AB. They know that rugby is going to have an incredible impact on their campus, and they believe that, and that's really exciting. I mean, they've given us, first of all, a dedicated rugby field, which is huge. And of course, the financial aid, which is the biggest piece, of course, for most people trying to attend college. We're treated just like every other sport, which is the big battle for so many college programs to be treated. I mean, we have the same scholarship structure as football and baseball and softball and track. So the way that we operate is we're equal. We're the same.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Is there any other acknowledgments or recognitions you'd like to talk about before we sign off?
Yeah. Our athletic director and acting athletic director, Dennis Crehan and Kerry Bodkins have, really supported us in our first 6 months and teaching us the systems and the ropes at AB. Our president, Tim Barry, I remember when I interviewed, one of the reasons that I was so excited about taking this position is that I could tell that he cared about the same things that I did in terms of creating a phenomenal college experience and finding being athlete-centered and being student-centered. And I think that place checks all those boxes. So I'm very excited to be here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, Laura, I want to thank you very much for your time and your patience through a couple of technical difficulties. But
no problem.
I'm really glad we got to meet on the trip last year and we were able to connect today. And I'm definitely watching what you're doing at AB. And if I find any athletes, I will send them your way for sure.
Great.
And
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I can talk about what we're doing here all day, and that's really literally my job at the moment. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to do that. I've listened to all your episodes. I'm excited. I'm excited that I'm in the pool of people that you get to talk to. That feels really special. So thank you.
You were in the top 5 wish list.
Oh, thanks.
I was like, Laura's doing some cool stuff. I got to call her. So, no, thank you again. And with that, we'll sign off here and get into editing this episode and getting it up so people could hear all the great things you're doing.
Great.
All right. Thanks again, Laura.
Thank you.